So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another week here at the Our Jimmy Experience podcast with me, Carl Maloney. How are you doing? You all right? This podcast, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new to it, is a nice, safe space where we delve into the grassroots music industry and beyond and find interesting people within it. And we've got another interesting person on his hands today, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Jessica Greenfield. Hi, mate. How you doing? You all right?
Oh yeah, good. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very, very welcome. You're very, very welcome, mate. You're very welcome. So, it's quite a new relationship, isn't it? We just followed each other on Instagram recently, and I had a little
Yeah.
nosy about all the stuff that you're doing. So I thought you look interesting. I'll have a chat with you.
Yeah, no, I'm really grateful for you following me, and um yeah, it's nice to sort of, meet a new person and
Yeah,
a new podcast.
yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, well, thanks for joining us. So, if anybody's new to your work, Jessica, give us a little introduction to yourself and what you do.
okay, well, I'm a singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and I have a band called Wonder 45, but I'm also a member of Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds.
Hmm. Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So how did you first instrumentalist? And I can never say that word.
Yeah, it's a hard word to say.
Yeah.
I How did I get into it?
Yeah. Well, how did music like? How did you know that you had this love for music? Was it
Um,
was it young?
well,
Were
I
you?
mean, I come from a musical background. My dad's a musician.
Oh, okay.
My brother was a musician.
Oh.
He's in the music industry. My auntie's a musician. Like it's just in my family.
So you had no choice then, really.
I basically had no choice.
Jessica, fair enough.
Um, I I think I was always musical, but I realised that I could sing when I was about 15. And so I started off doing that. But before that, I'd done piano lessons. And I think I always had a natural feel for rhythm. So I stopped playing the piano for ages and I just focused on singing. And then I was kind of doing more writing and stuff and realized, oh, I think I need to go back to playing the piano, but I was so rusty. So then I had to just practice, practice, practice. And then I got a gig and they wanted me to play a bit more kind of percussion, like shakers, tambourines. And I realized I was pretty good at it. I could just kind of like, I could keep rhythm quite easily. I could keep time. And I did that for quite a few years, that gig. It was with a guy called John Ilsley from Dire Straits, who was the
Okay.
bass player. Yeah. And I was doing that and I got quite good at it. And then when I got the gig with Noel, he asked me to play tambourine. I thought, well, I know how to do that.
I could do that.
Easy. And the keyboards, because I've been practicing, that also, it was like, it was in my,
Yeah.
what's the word? It was already there. I could just call on it.
Yeah.
And vocals I'd been doing, for years anyway. So they're all in my armory. It was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that.
And what part of the world are you from?
I'm from London originally, but I live in Bedfordshire now.
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and the other thing is that I can play the guitar, but I haven't had the chance to do it on a gig.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
My dad's a guitar teacher, so he
Oh,
played guitar from when I was young.
how come you went into piano then rather than guitar then if your dad teaches
Um,
rebel, being a bit of a rebel?
I don't know really. Yeah, that's a very good question, one that I haven't actually thought about.
Hmm.
I think maybe my parents had just thought, oh, just have some piano lessons, and
Right.
I just sort of kept it going. But yeah, maybe I should do a bit more guitar.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So I can remember like when I learned the guitar, I were right good at strumming. So I knew I had rhythm with it, but I weren't the best guitar player, if you know what I mean. So
yeah,
even when you are learning a new instrument, there's still you're going to be talented, or maybe you can just do it all, and you've got the world at your feet type thing. But it's hard work learning the other side of being a musician. Like so, anybody can learn a few chords, can't they?
yeah,
Not everybody can learn the rhythm side of it because that's harder to teach.
exactly. I think some people have a natural flair for it.
Yeah,
Other people can learn, but I think you can hear the difference.
yeah,
If
yeah,
someone they've naturally got it and they can naturally feel it.
yeah.
But
You can
uh,
it is more a feeling than a thing, isn't it?
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know how to explain it myself.
yeah, and I think that principle applies for most musicians, singers, drummers. I think. I personally think you can hear it if someone is just purely learnt, has gone to college and they've learnt, and maybe they couldn't really do it before. And I think you can hear the difference between someone that just feels it or someone that
Yeah.
that has just a natural ability.
You could just tell it like with just like the Rolling Stones or something. It's just like they ingrained in a minute.
Yeah.
They could be running about playing guitar, and that's not an easy thing.
No, exactly.
Or just moving with a guitar is a different
Exactly.
experience than just
Yeah.
being able to sat at the end of your bed and just
Yeah, yeah,
do
yeah.
tunes in it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's in you in it somewhere, that kind
It is,
of
it is. It
performance
is.
type of it
And then
type.
you do get people that have the natural feel and
Yeah,
then but they're also really technically amazing.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think they're quite rare.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
that is my two pence worth.
no, that's fair enough. So young lass, raised in London, you've got this musical family around you. Uh,
Yeah.
rebelled against guitar because your dad's a guitar teacher. Went for piano. So I always regret not learning the piano.
Oh,
You know,
really?
I always had a mental block with it. I just, because I like the guitar. I started off playing a tenor horn, so I
Oh,
started
yeah.
a brass music first, and
Yeah.
then it weren't really cool when I was a kid at 16. So I kind of like
Yeah.
changed the guitar, got into that,
Yeah.
and then the piano just felt like too much of a leap for me. That
Yeah.
that instrument, it's quite
Yeah.
intimidating, isn't it?
Yeah,
It
it is.
feels like it's. Is it harder to play than a guitar? Would you say?
Good question. I think they've both got their challenges.
Mm,
Um, is it harder to play? I think it's probably easier to play initially
yeah.
because you just have to press the keys.
Yes. And
You
then
don't
you
have so
get the
much
right.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also you obviously you can get the calluses on your fingers, but you don't get that with the piano.
Hmm.
So I think initially guitar you have to have a bit more perseverance.
Yeah.
But keyboards you can easily get a chord if someone just shows you where C, E, and G are.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose.
But
But being good at it though.
to be good at it, again, I think it's the same thing. You have to just practice, practice, practice. That is the key, really.
Well, I had time on my hands. I were on the dole or whatever you call it as a kid.
Yeah,
So I just had no better to do. So I was just like,
yeah,
well, I've just got this guitar in corner. My fingers are just gonna hurt for the rest of my life. Here we go.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
Let's do this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and that, so many bands have actually been in that, have been in that
Yeah.
situation,
Yeah.
you know, and it just shows if you've got a passion for something,
Yeah.
you've just got to spend the time doing it.
Yeah. So did you have a lot of connections then growing up in music?
Um, did I have a lot of connections? I mean, in one particular world, my dad is a guitar teacher, but he also had a band, but it was kind of like more in the sort of Latin jazz funk scene back
Mm,
in the 80s.
okay.
So he had a lot of musician connections.
Yeah.
So I suppose what I was thrown into from an early age was just seeing these incredible musicians and seeing like, wow, you could be this good if you really stick at it.
Yeah.
It didn't feel alien to me growing up to aim to be a musician as a grown up. It wasn't like, oh, you need to go and get a proper job. And I think that was quite like integral to me.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is possible if you want to do it. You're not going to get shunned. You're not going to get shamed or whatever. Like you can do this if you want. So that was key, I think. But the turning point for me was when I was at secondary school. There was a guy there who was running like a covers band. Actually, no, he was just in the year above me. And when he left, he started a covers band. And he was a really amazing, gifted musician. And he said, look, I want to go and earn some money. So I'm going to, do like weddings and corporate events. Do you want to sing? And I thought, well, yeah, I need some, I've just left school. I need some money. So yeah, so I started off doing these covers bands.
Mm,
And that was the turning point because I was meeting so many different musicians that were working with loads of different artists. They were doing sessions, they were doing all kinds of stuff. And I did that for about 10 years, really like honing my craft, I suppose, singing in front of nobody. You go to a wedding, everyone's at the bar.
yeah.
So I've done gigs like that. I've done gigs to, 5,000 people at a huge event for a massive brand. I've done all kinds of gigs. And that really helped me because I felt comfortable singing in front of all different kinds of people. That was the first thing. And then I was mingling with all different kinds of musicians who then opened the door to producers and um, musicians that weren't doing those kind of function gigs. They were doing working with bigger artists. So it took a good 10 to 15 years of like just doing these gigs, driving for hundreds of miles for, shit money, but realizing, okay, look, if I want to do this, if I'm really pushing myself to sing, to
Mm.
do this, then I've got the drive to go out and do more.
Well,
And
doing that type of work, particularly over 10 years, I know a lot of people that, because I mainly deal with a lot of bands that are in the grassroots stage. So
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah,
want to do their own music. There's zero money in it. So I
yeah.
do know a few people that branch out and do the wedding stuff and that kind of stuff. And they do tell me it can be quite life destroying.
It can.
It
It
can be
really can.
as a creative person, you've got your own interests as well. Doing other people's
Oh my
stuff
God,
can
yeah.
can can be hard work.
It really can. It really can. And, there are days where I'd be driving 2 hours to a gig. Terrible traffic. You get there. Quite often you don't know the people you're singing with.
Yeah,
You turn up. Do you know these songs? Yes.
yeah,
No
okay.
food. Or there's like some old crusty sandwiches that have been there since the morning. And, God, I used to moan and moan about those gigs, which I know is ungrateful. But you know what? There are times in life where you think, I'm so glad that I did that because, as I say, you pull on that experience and you think, right, if I can do that, I can do this. And I remember when I first turned up in the rehearsal room with Noel, I didn't know the guys, never met them, but I'd learnt the songs, right? So it's like I'd learnt the songs to do the function gigs. I'd learnt the songs, they were there in my head. I knew how to turn up to a gig, not knowing anybody,
Yeah,
and creating a good impression, being professional, right? So that's the function gig element.
yeah.
I turned up at the rehearsal room. I was nervous, I'm not going to lie. I was really nervous.
I can imagine.
But I thought, okay, well, I know how to turn up, not know anyone.
Yeah,
Okay, I know that I can do a good job. I
yeah.
know I've learned the songs. So I felt confident. It,
Transferable skills.
yeah, yeah. But I was nervous, obviously, because this is like I'm unbelievable. Pinch myself sort of moment. And I had actually met Noel. I had met him before. But yeah, it was very, very nerve-wracking. But
Did you ever do any Oasis songs for the wedding stuff?
yeah,
Okay, yeah,
I grew up listening to them. My brother was obsessed with them. My dad would teach
yeah,
kids how to play Wonderwall on the guitar.
yeah.
And I was actually talking about this yesterday, um, that um, so my brother was a huge Oasis fan. My dad knew someone who knew Noel back in the day, and he'd got an autograph for my brother from Noel and Liam, and he had it on a CD. And I remember it was in our house. We were like, "Wow, isn't that so cool?" And then when I was about 17, 18, I had a job in a shoe shop in Camden, which is where I'm from. And Noel came in, and I sold him a pair of shoes.
Oh, nice.
And I remember he coming. I thought, "Wow, oh my God, that's Noel Gallagher from Oasis." And he came to me and he said, "Do you have these?" Da da da. And I remember I was just so starstruck.
Yeah,
And if I could tell that 17, 18-year-old, one day you're going to be singing with him,
yeah.
arenas and stadiums. I mean, that actually gives me goosebumps talking about it now. Like, it's just amazing.
Have you
It's just,
told? Have you reminded Noel about that day?
yeah, yeah, we've talked about that a couple of times.
Do you remember it?
I don't know. I
Oh, no.
think he's going there quite a lot. So,
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, nice. That's nice. But just
yeah.
just hanging around the wedding stuff a little bit. I do know just from knowing people as well. Some people, did you pick up any bad habits from doing like weddings before, moving on to doing your own stuff? Because
Uh,
that can be a thing too. You can see it on, you can see, like people like they tend to take on a bit of somebody else's personality when it's not as,
yeah,
and like bad habits and that kind
yeah.
of. and like moving the microphone out too much and doing all that. I don't know.
Um, I suppose the bad habits that I picked up would be, I'm a bit ashamed to say, I suppose sometimes not learning things properly because you can just kind of blag songs.
Yeah. Okay.
But you could make up a song kind of, if you kind of knew most of the lyrics, you could make the lyrics up on like
Oh,
on the
yeah.
fly,
Yeah. Okay.
which is a bad habit and one that I knew that I couldn't carry over to doing now.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Fair
I cannot make the lyrics up for that.
enough.
Um, and any other bad habits? Um, no, that's probably it, I would say. Just
Yeah. Good.
being a bit lazy.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair enough. We're all a bit lazy, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. You got a
Yeah.
few corners doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think, but I actually think that comes sometimes that comes from not being appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, and not just me, but like the whole band.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're putting in a lot of effort, you're playing the songs, and everyone's outside.
Yeah.
Or, you know, yeah, people aren't listening, or they're talking really loudly, or,
Yeah.
you know, that comes from years of just thinking, oh, fuck, no one gives a fuck. You
Yeah.
know, can I say that?
Yeah. Of course you can.
Okay. So yeah, that's where that comes from, I would say.
Yeah.
But but a lot of good came out of doing that.
But there's similar shades to like, doing it grassroots as well, isn't there? You're playing toilets, you play for no money, you play
Yeah,
to, you might play the shitty festival over there and you just playing to a couple of kids playing with balloons or footballs or whatever.
absolutely.
There's no like easy way into it. Whatever opportunity is
No,
you got.
there isn't. There isn't. And actually, with my band,
Yeah.
then you know we're not doing big festivals.
Yeah.
Or if we are, they're very small stages.
Mm.
So I'm kind of like, I know what it's like still.
Yeah.
Um, and it's quite nice, really, because you sort of feel like um, you have to find that drive again in a different place.
Yeah.
So with Noel, it's like it's done,
Yeah.
right? But then with this, because it's me and my songwriting and I'm doing lead. I don't mind that it's low level
Yeah.
as long as it's like if it's being appreciated, that's amazing.
Nice. Well, talk us through Wonder 45, then introduce us to Wonder
Yeah,
40 to people that might be new to hear that name.
it's a project that I've been working on with a guy called Holly Gray, who's a producer, and some other really amazing musicians, and my husband, who is the other singer and songwriter in the band. And a kind of, it's very kind of retro sounding. It's kind of like soul, indie, folky, kind of um, very, yeah, very real, all recorded onto tape.
Mm.
Uh, and it's um, pulling
Nothing,
on,
nothing digital, all tape.
it's all been recorded to tape, real time.
Yeah.
I did record the vocals afterwards, but still on tape. And it's
You like
kind of,
making life hard for yourself then? Harder for yourself a little bit.
well, no, it was the way that I'll explain in a minute, but it's the way
Oh
the
yeah.
project actually came
Right.
about.
Got you. Okay.
Um, and it's very soulful. It's kind of um, when when I was writing the lyrics and the melody, I was just thinking about like people that I listened to when I was growing up. I loved artists like Aretha and Dusty Springfield and Al Green, Curtis Mayfield, all that kind of stuff. Um, and my husband's really into like Free, Bad Company, like more of the rocky side.
Mm.
So if you combine all of it, you get like this kind of mishmash of
Right.
soul and rock and um, yeah, it's been a really amazing project to be a part of. And the way that it came about was that Holly, who's the bass player and the producer, had written some instrumental tracks with his mates that are really amazing musicians, and they've worked with people like Michael Kiwanuka um, and the Monophonics and like really amazing kind of soulful acts. And they were looking for singers or a singer to write on top of these tracks. So one of them had worked with me in the past and said, "What about Jess?" So they basically sent me these instrumental tracks, and I wrote maybe was it five or six tracks over the top of these instrumentals at home, and then I brought the songs to Holly, and he was like, "Wow, let's record them." So then we recorded them at his studio with onto tape, and that's how it came about.
Mm.
And we didn't do anything with it for a few years, and then COVID hit,
Right. Okay.
and
That
then
COVID.
COVID, then we all had kids.
Right.
Like,
Okay. Got you. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
they're like, right, we have to put these out because they're really good.
right.
And we released one just very low level, just on streaming platforms. We didn't try and like push it out, and it did really well just on Spotify, and it got put on some really good playlists. And then we released Cry, which was the first one that I was on. We released that with a PR company and like
Yeah.
did it, and it did amazingly well, and it got onto Radio 2 playlists and BBC Six Music with Champion at Craig Charles, and it started to really do well. And then because of that, we started getting bookings for festivals and stuff. So we were all quite taken aback, really, that something that was very low level with quite a small PR company kind of had that reaction. So yeah, we're really grateful that happened. And yeah, we've got more gigs coming up this year. We're hoping to do a tour at the end of this year, and more gigs next year. We're going to be writing a new album. So yeah, it's really exciting.
You've only just brought an album out this month as well, is it? As well,
Exactly.
your
Yeah,
debut album's out.
we released our debut album, Wonderland, at the beginning of this month.
Does it feel like you're a bit of a like you're a grown-up band now? You've got your own album.
It does. It does feel like that.
I speak to a lot of bands, and I always say to them, "You've got our album out now. You've got a proper. The hard work probably starts now.
Exactly.
it's nice to have that album thing out, but
Yeah.
you can't class yourself as a new band now. I don't think
No,
you've got to crack on.
exactly. You've got to crack on.
Yeah,
It kind of gives you the taste of it, and you're like,
yeah,
right, okay.
yeah,
Especially doing live gigs, because obviously the way that it started, we'd never gigged before.
yeah. Right.
So we'd already written and recorded the tracks separately,
Yeah.
which is very unusual. So when we first got the gig, we were like, oh shit, now we need to actually play together.
So what did you do about that? Just started playing together, I presume.
And we just got into Holly's studio. We just started
Went for it.
running the songs, and then just going into rehearsal rooms and just like, you know, time after time after time, just keep running, 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 running.
So it must be like it must be a weird experience because when you get a debut album out, usually you've known these people for a few years and you've grafted and you've gone through it, but now you
Yeah,
kind of like fell on this debut album a little bit, for want of a better phrase.
yeah.
So the difficult second album might just fly by. You might just piss that one.
Well, maybe, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, it's exciting actually, because now this next album will be written knowing what our voices are like,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
opposed to writing tracks without having a singer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what actually happens.
Yeah. And what level would you say Wonder 45 are at within the music industry at the minute? Where would
Um,
you class yourselves at?
oh, I would say we're not absolute beginners,
Mm,
and because we have a small profile,
yeah.
having had radio play and stuff, um, I don't know. It's a very interesting question. I don't even know. I mean, it's low level. It is low level, but it's not like, you know, we're still we're still like writing the music.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think what I do know is that whenever we do gigs, people are really, you know, taken with it and they want to invest in it.
Yeah.
So I think, that's really amazing to us.
Mm,
We did an album launch last month, and it blew us away because it was basically packed full of people that had bought our album, or they bought the vinyl,
yeah.
and they loved the songs, and they're 100% in it. And that's amazing to me.
Yeah.
And especially when I do gigs with Noel, there's hundreds of thousands of people just invested in every single word that he's saying. that is just incredible. It's incredible. So to have even like 100 people
Yeah.
knowing your songs is just like, that's beautiful.
Well, I definitely want to ask you a few questions about Noel.
Yeah,
As a young Oasis boy, I'm just fascinated with what goes on around that bloke. But first, you mentioned something earlier, just when we were discussing rhythm and stuff. You mentioned somebody from Dire Straits. I just wanted to get a better understanding of that little story there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I joined John Ilsley, who was the bass player of Dire Straits, his band, about 2 years before I joined the High Flying Birds. So that was 2017 when I joined that. So I'd say about 2014, 2015, I joined John Ilsley's band. And that was the first time I think that I'd really worked with kind of really high level artist or someone that had really experienced the sort of old school fame, like the 80s fame, the 90s fame, where it's just like iconic. I don't think that really exists now.
Yeah.
It does in a way, but not like it did, you know. So we were playing Money for Nothing and we were playing Private Investigations and all those kind of massive Dire Straits hits. And I was kind of doing what I was doing with Noel, where I was doing backing vocals, but singing. It wasn't like a typical ooh ah in a section of backing vocalist. It was harmonizing over what he was doing, playing a bit of percussion. And that was where I first started kind of really getting my confidence together with that. Because before that, I'd done a lot of functions, and I'd been working on my own project. It was another project that I had with my husband called the Condors. So we'd done that. But anyway, I'm veering off on a tangent. So I was working with John, and I first met a guy called Paul Stacey, and he is an amazing guitarist, producer, mixer, engineer. And we'd been doing about a year or two of touring with John, also with a guitarist called Robbie McIntosh, who is one of the best guitarists ever. He's played with Paul McCartney, John Mayer. He used to be in the Pretenders. Like, it was, to me, it was like mind blowing. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible.
It is for me just hearing them names. I don't know where to start. I've just
I know, I know, I know. Where do you start? Where do you start? He played the amazing guitar riff on Don't Get Me Wrong by the Pretenders and on, 2000 Miles. That absolutely love those songs. Anyway, so one day we were rehearsing with John at his house and we were having a cup of tea, and Paul says to me, because I knew at this point that Paul had worked a lot with Noel and he'd been in Oasis.
Mm.
And he said to me, oh, Noel's looking for a singer, a female singer for his band that can play a bit of keys and a bit of percussion. And I've put you forward. How do you feel about that? And I was like, what? Like, I almost spat my tea out. He was like, you got to keep it on the down low because, he might change his mind. You just don't know. I
Yeah.
was like, okay. And I was like, fucking hell, what? And then, yeah, like a few weeks went past. Oh, yeah, that's right. So he told Noel, then I got an email from Noel saying, I've been speaking to Paul, he's told me about you. Would you be interested in this? Like, joining this band, coming on tour. But let's meet up first so we can just sort of like get to know each other. Da, da. So I went to his office, shaking. Like, the only time I'd ever felt like that was when I did my driving test.
Okay.
I was absolutely shitting myself.
Yeah.
Went to his office, I met him, and he was so lovely. We got on really well. And he just said that meeting, do you want to come on tour?
Yeah.
Do you want to come to America?
Yeah.
There wasn't, I didn't have to sing in front of him. It was just like, yeah. He trusted Paul's
Yeah.
opinion so highly that that was enough. So before you knew it, I said, unfortunately, I had to say to John, look, I've just got this gig with Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds. And he said, okay, great. Well, that's great for you, you know. And yeah,
There you go.
yeah,
Well, I was having a little nosy on Instagram, and I've seen you flying all over the world and stuff and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff. That looks like good work. But as a mum, how's that, being on tour as a mum and having, you know, other people to look after as well as your career?
Yeah, it's
Uh,
it's the biggest challenge, I would say.
mm,
And when I first joined Noel's band, I didn't have a child.
mm.
So, you know, you're totally fancy free. There's no worries. You haven't got to, you know, think about childcare or anything like that. And I got pregnant during the pandemic. No, just before the pandemic, and I had her during the second lockdown. So there was a big chunk of time where I didn't have to worry about having to go on tour. But as soon as I had her, my biggest fear was, how am I going to manage motherhood and mothering and touring? Like I don't even know how that's possible. And my husband is also a musician, so what are we going to do? But do you know what? I mean, my husband is absolutely amazing. I couldn't do this job without him because he has sacrificed so much time to look after her. And when I've gone on tour, he's come on tour. He drove around America for a month with his friend so that I could be with her. I mean, it's just mind blowing to me that he's just incredible. But it's very challenging. And the biggest challenge is that, she sees me for like a day or two and then I'm gone again. It's it's very confusing for her. And she's only 3.5.
Mm.
Um, it's it's tiring. When you're on tour, you have to be on.
Yeah.
And then you have to come home and then be a mum.
Yeah.
And it's like you're still sort of coming down off that tour, but you're still having to. It's very weird.
I can imagine.
Very, very weird.
In fact, I can't imagine. I can't. I'm not a
No,
parent.
it's
I'm not a parent, so I can't imagine it.
okay, okay. It's very odd.
Yeah.
But what I will say to any mums or musician mums or that it is possible.
Mm.
You just have to have an incredible support network, number one. And I think you have to be really open and honest with your child about exactly what you're doing. She's seen me gigging, so it's not like I don't know what mummy does.
Yeah.
She's seen it. But I think yeah, you have to be really honest and open with your child.
It's definitely something they'll find very cool when we're a bit older, though, won't they?
I hope so. I
When
hope.
when she's at school and her friends' mum and dads are just like insurance people and that. My mum does all that.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I hope so. I hope she's not like fucking hate music because it took my mum off
I
the
can't imagine that. But I was going to ask you how the Noel thing happened. So you've already told us about that. That's interesting that he just trusted you, just like that. He didn't have to do any more than
No,
that.
I think he must have seen some videos of me.
Right. Okay.
I think he must have done.
Yeah.
Yeah, he trusted Paul's judgment. He's called Paul Strange Boy Stacey. If anyone has ever
Oh, no.
heard his name, Strange Boy Stacey. Um, yeah, yeah, I've got him to thank for it, really.
So you got this email off Noel. You said yes, obviously.
Yeah,
And then so what was your first experience of being around the high flying birds then? Was there rehearsals and stuff
yeah,
before? Yeah, what
yeah,
cool. Yeah, you didn't.
yeah. The first experience was I walked into, it was called Music Bank.
Right.
It was down in like London Bridge way,
Hmm.
and I walked into this huge room. It was the first time I'd ever experienced like high level production,
Yeah.
you know, massive rehearsal room. And the other thing was when I first met Noel, he said, "Do you have in-ears? Proper in-ear molds?" And I didn't. I just had like generic in-ear monitors. And he said, "Right." And he called out to someone in the office and said, "Can we get Jess's in-ear molds made?" And I was like, "Fucking hell, this is incredible."
Here we go.
Like this, here we go.
Here we go. Yeah.
And so that like I had my molds and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." It was like walking into like a dream.
And was there other people there that were like you that were like there for the first time, or were you the only one that was brand new?
Well, funnily enough, Gem Archer
Yeah.
was new in this setup because he'd only done Oasis before. He'd never done High Flying Birds. So we were both new to it.
But
But
but Game obviously had that relationship with Noel in Oasis.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
so you were like the first, the proper brand new one.
Yes, properly brand
Okay.
new. But Gem hadn't worked with Russ, the bass player, or
Yeah.
I don't think he'd work with. Um, I
The
don't think.
drummer played for Oasis as well, didn't he?
Yeah, Chris. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Amazing. Just amazing. It was just amazing. Really amazing.
What was the first song that you rehearsed, Liam? Is it something mad like "Don't Look Back in Anger" and it's just like fucking hell, I can remember playing this at a wedding.
No, it wasn't. I think it must have been one of his new songs.
Right, okay.
It could have been Holy Mountain,
All right.
which is from his uh, the penultimate album, the one that was the one before the last one. I think it was Holy Mountain.
Yeah.
We would have done his new stuff first,
Yeah, well,
and
I still love Fort Knox, me, when he, because I've seen High Flying Birds loads of times over the years and Oasis years before that. And Fort Knox is one of the songs that I used to start with. I don't know if he still does anymore, but
oh yeah,
that's a banging tune, isn't it?
great, isn't it? Yeah, it's a great tune. Um, yeah, it might we might have done that at some point. Yeah, we definitely rehearsed that, but I don't know if that was the first one.
Yeah.
Um, oh, it could have been. Oh, I'm not sure now.
I'm not sure now. Anyway, it's a good song anyway.
It is a good song.
My memories from gigs are always blurred a little bit from having a bit of booze and that and all, you know.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's hard to remember these all these details and that kind of stuff. So so you arrived in there, you got your in ears. How long did you rehearse before like going on the road then? Did it take a while or
I would say it must have been about 3 weeks.
yeah?
It has to be maybe two, but I reckon it was three. Maybe it was nearly a month. I think it was quite a long time because obviously it's a whole new setup, brand new songs.
Well, I'm gonna say,
Uh,
did you get a bit of time? Did you get sent like a sheet of songs before you went to the actual rehearsal rooms as well? What prep did you have to do before turning up?
I got a whole email with a folder of all the songs,
Right.
and I don't even think I got told which parts to sing. I'm not even sure how I worked it out, to be honest, but I must have just assumed I have to sing the top part to Noel.
Right.
And also Russ, the bass player, does harmonies as well. So I think there must have been a conversation with him as to you sing that part and I'll sing that part.
Mm.
Um, and again, I was drawing on all of that experience I'd had from doing function gigs,
Mm.
where you have to do a harmony very quickly in the moment, or someone's singing the wrong one, so you swap in the
Yeah.
moment. There's no like, right, let's stop and work it out. It's like, no, you've got to hear it.
Yeah.
So all of these things in those moments, I think, thank you for that. I'm so glad that I did that. You know, in the moment, it would have been shit. I would have been hating every moment of singing at some horrible corporate event.
Yeah.
But God, in this moment with Noel, I'm so glad that I did that.
How nurturing it is Noel of his flying birds? What how I don't know. I don't really know what I'm asking with that question, so I'll just stop there and see if you answer.
He is he is a very um, he is a very interesting person because he trusts. The first thing is he trusts that whoever is there in his band is going to nail it. That's why you're there.
Yeah.
So there isn't time for, well, let's stop and let's run this bit over and over again. He doesn't work like that. You go in and you run the set and it has to be right. So from the get-go, there is an expectation.
Mm.
And because of that, he respects you as a musician. And and this also is in the studio as well. He respects your level of talent.
Yeah.
He is incredibly funny, like belly laughing funny. And he is he's very, when we're all on tour, we'll go out for dinner and he likes to be around everybody and it's a really great atmosphere on tour. And we all love each other a lot and we're all really good mates and I think we've all come from really different backgrounds. It's not like the standard session musician band. And I think that's created a really interesting group of people. And that has come from Noel, really, because he has picked people from all different situations. You know, Russ was in the Zootons, Gem has played in Oasis, and before that, you know, he had his own band, Heavy Stereo, but he came from quite a poor background, I think. I think it catapulted him.
Mm.
You know, Chris, he's got the most incredible back catalogue of songs that he has played on from like the Lars, and you know, it's incredible. Mikey was in Oasis and he's played with Sheryl Crow. You know, I've got a session musician background, and you know, and then you've got the
It
girls.
must be really interesting chats around around those meals that you have. It
Oh my
must.
God, it's so interesting.
Is it intimidating a bit though?
I don't personally know. I haven't found it. I've just found it inspiring. I find it inspiring, and I find it, you know, I'm proud of everyone. You know, they're like some of my best mates, and I actually just find it fascinating, people's journeys
Yeah.
in music and how they've got to where they've got
That's why
to.
I like doing this podcast. I love
Yeah.
stuff. I love conversations like this and just having a chat. I did cut you off a little bit there. You were going to say about the girls as well. I
Oh
don't
yeah, no, it's
want
fine.
to miss them out.
So when I first joined, there was Charlotte Martineau, who was played obviously famously played the scissors, but also she wrote she came up with the French part on It's a Beautiful World, and then YC, who who sang quite a lot on Noel's album. She did the first two tours, I think, and then Noel brought in the three girls that Sammy, Emma, and Amy, and they have had experience with Gaz Coombs,
Yeah.
and they are like my favourite people. I just love them so much, and to have their energy on tour is just, you know, it's everything to me. You know, sometimes when you're a woman amongst the only woman amongst men, you know, I've had experience of that.
Yeah.
Um, it's nice to have other women there to, you know, and their mums as well.
Nice.
It's lovely, actually. It's really lovely. Um,
Was it
so,
not? Was it any? Did you have bad experiences when it was just you around men then?
um, did I have bad experiences? No, not
Or,
necessarily.
or
I
not
mean,
a positive surrounding space type thing? I don't know.
yeah. Well, when I was in my 20s, I used to be in a band called The Herbalizer. And they were like a sort of trip hop band back in the 90s. And I wasn't in it in the 90s. I'm not
Okay.
that. um, but I mean, I suppose that level of touring, and this is also quite relevant because this was my first experience of touring. And it was very like, we were all on a tour bus, there were no hotels. It was me and like maybe 11 men.
Yeah.
So that was very hard because I had my bunk and that was it.
I bet that were horrible. Men can be horrible, can't you? Farting all the time and all that
Oh,
kind of stuff.
I remember one day everyone had gone off for like a wander in America. And I was so devoid of any female chat
Yeah.
or
Okay. Yeah.
company and so I remember I put on a really cheesy slushy film called The Notebook on the bus, and I just cried and I cried and I cried and I cried because all I wanted was to like get in touch with that
Yeah.
female
Yeah.
part of me. It wasn't like talking about tits or whatever it is they want to talk about, you know? Or
No,
like,
I can imagine.
so yeah, that was that was one particular memory I've got of being in that band. But again, like that was an amazing experience because that's when I first sort of had my first experience of touring and what it's like to go from city to city and be on a tour bus. But it was like rough, you know.
I can imagine. So festival season's been a busy one for you. You've been doing these big stages all over the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
You've got a debut album out. Have you got any time for yourself over the next month or so? Now things look like they're calming down a bit, or have you got loads going on?
My daughter's knocking on the door.
Oh, it's okay, bring her in.
Ava, come in. You can come in quickly. It's all right. You can.
Hi, mate. Hello, mate. Hello. Is
Say hi. You want to say hello?
this your first ever podcast?
It is.
Oh, bless her. Nice.
Are you okay? Are you going now?
So you're even busier now than what you were before, then?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Go
She's all right.
to school. No, you're not. Oh.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I've got you can edit this out, can't you?
Well, whatever, mate. It's fine with it in. It's
All
fine.
right, good.
It's just real. Yeah.
It's all real, isn't it? Yeah, so we've got basically now it's going to be focusing on 145 because obviously we're taking a break with Noel
Yeah.
for a
Nice.
while. And yeah, what else have
Get
I
that
been doing?
second album sorted.
Yes, that is the main thing. You don't know what I'm doing.
No.
Am I looking after you?
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Well, Jessica, really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so
Let's
much.
see your daughter. What's her name there? Is it
What's
Ava?
your, what's your name? Can you say your name? Ava.
Ava. Hi, Ava. Well, thanks for joining us as well, mate. I'm from the north. You might not understand me properly.
Thank
Well,
you so
no,
much.
you're very welcome, Jessica. Thanks for joining us and
Thank
spending
you. It's been
this
a
morning with
pleasure.
us this morning. Really appreciate it, and all the best as well. We look forward to
Thank
the
you.
Wonder 45 album. Nice one.
Yeah, thank you very
Thanks,
much.
mate.